Did you ever wonder? I do. Did you ever wonder why the sun always rises, but the stars never fall? Why dry land is never satisfied by water? And why fire never says enough?
So have you ever wondered about death? Yeah, that's a real Bible wonder, isn't it? And it's interesting that God had me there, and there's so much about death in the Bible. And, you know, as we take up our cross and follow him, we can't help but just come face to face with that concept all the time. And so it's interesting that, to me, the word itself is one of those that's really hard in Hebrew, from my standpoint, to try to fathom what these letters are telling me. And so I just thought I'd wonder with you a little bit about this idea and just share with you the letters and let you think like I am. So the first letter in the word death is the letter Mem. And you may know that the letter Mem is the center of the Hebrew alphabet. It usually means water. To the Jews, they will tell you it means Torah because, again, Jesus is the living water. And so it's very much connected to that. It is, you know, a Mem and a Yud and a Mem is the word water. And so it's connected to all those thoughts. But it is also the first letter in the word Messiah, or Mashiach. And so certainly very much connected to Jesus in all sorts of different ways because he's the living water. And so it's fascinating that this word death, as you look, you know, if you will eat of the tree of knowledge, you will surely die. You know, that's the first time you see that word. And of course, you'll see it. Wow, it's one of the most prominent words in the Bible. It's all over the place. And so it's simply starting with a mem is, you know, just something to consider. And certainly there is another part of the mem that does have to do with judgment. And so you can't help but see that. So the next letter in the word death, I'll just give you all three together. It's a mem, a vav, and a tav. So the mem, that idea, that letter generally means that you're kind of hooked to heaven. Some people call it Jacob's ladder. But certainly if you look in the 119th Psalm in the vav section, you'll see that it is always a continuation. So it's like if you want to continue a thought on for over a period of time, especially forever, and we all know that it's mem forever. Jesus is forever. And so that idea of this continual mem or continual judgment does seem to make sense, right? And then that tav at the end often has to do with the end of the story. And of course, we know that Jesus is going to continue to the end of the story. And so as I have pondered this, like death has to do certainly in so many different ways with you're going to meet Jesus, right? And that whole idea of everybody talks to God. And at that point, are you going to be happy about the fact that you're facing Jesus? Or are you going to be terrified about that fact that you are facing Jesus? Is really the question, because depart from me, you never knew me, is this eternal separation or this eternal unity if you've asked him into your heart and essentially have died to yourself before you ever got to the point where you died physically. It's a fascinating thought. And I just think that it's also fascinating that the word truth in Hebrew is an aleph, a mem, and a tav. And so you take the end of truth, and you see that it's that idea of the mem tav, again, that you see in the word death. And I think there's certainly a connection there. And so the reason why I like that idea of truth being aleph, mem, tet is what Jesus told him, what told John in the book of Revelation, that I am the beginning, I'm the Alpha, and I'm the Omega. But he's also the middle, because truth is an aleph at the beginning, a mem in the middle, and a tav at the end. And so you see, it is Jesus forever. And so I just thought it would be fun to wonder a little bit. And clearly, when I think about my days of being terrified of the dark, when Jesus, and I asked him, I said, how do I give this to you? You know, how do I get rid of this fear? And what he said was, Robbie, you know, what are you afraid of, essentially? And I said, well, you know, you've seen the the movie Straight Jacket, you know, somebody with a knife coming in the shower, you know, that whole picture. And he told me so clearly that night, and this was, almost 35 years ago, I guess. He said, what would be so bad about that? Well, at that point in time, I thought, oh, you're threatening me with Jesus. And what a great thing for those of us that are in Christ. But the thing that everybody that isn't in Christ, this is not going to be a pleasant experience whatsoever. And they have every reason to be afraid of the dark. And they have every reason to be afraid of death and afraid of judgment. And so it kind of spurs me on to think about, wow, what a great discussion to have. Like, have you wondered about death? Yeah, that's a great question to ask anybody, I think. Thanks for listening.
Did you ever wonder? Did you ever wonder? I do.